That's a good point, though. I mean, if the lights can go out during the middle of the Super Bowl.
Oh.
How are we doing? All right, I see a thumbs
Okay,
up in the
okay.
back. Thank you very much. We had some sound problems here for a minute, so I'll let you kind of pick up again where you feel
Fair
that
enough.
you left
Thank-
off. You want to condense a little bit of what you said.
Absolutely. So we're here representing the Eastchester Irish American Social Club, and we're kicking off our 9th annual St. Patrick's Day Parade, which will be on Sunday, March 10th. And this celebration has become a tradition and a source of pride for the enjoyment of Tuckahoe and Eastchester and the surrounding residents. The Eastchester Irish American Social Club is delighted to announce this year's Grand Marshal, who will be Dave Flannery, with Gene McCluskey and Brita Travers selected as parade honorees. The 2013 parade is stepping off at 3 p.m. from the Immaculate Conception Church in Tuckahoe, marching north on Route 22 to the Lake Isle Country Club. The parade will include the local schools, organizations, we'll have 10 pipe bands, 7 brass bands, and many other marching groups, and it'll be sure to be as entertaining as it has been in the past. Dave Flannery, our Grand Marshal, was born in County Tipperary, Ireland, arrived in the U.S. in 1985, and he and his wife, Anne-Marie, moved to Eastchester in 2000, where they immediately contributed to the community. Dave, known as a tireless volunteer, is one of those guys who simply gets things done with no fanfare. In fact, our motto is follow the green line for number 9. It turns out Dave is instrumental in putting the green line on 22. Dave has volunteered his time to the club and many other organizations, including the Boy Scout Troop 353 in Eastchester, where he's an assistant scoutmaster. For his aides, Dave Flannery has chosen his 15-year-old son, Jack, and his longtime friend, Tom Cassione, to be his aides. Gene McCluskey, who is one of our honorees, was born in Dublin, Ireland, and moved to Eastchester when she immigrated in 1978. And Jean went to work for the Irish Tourism Board, where she is currently a marketing director. In 1998, Jean and her late husband, Frank, God bless him, joined the Eastchester Irish. They raised 2 children, Kevin and Sarah. A stalwart in the organization, Jean contributes to all our club events. Professor Brita Travers teaches nursing at the Hackley School of Nursing, and she immigrated to Eastchester from Limerick, Ireland in 1990. She and her husband, Frank, joined the Eastchester Irish in 1995 and have 3 children, Laura, Brianne, and Ryan. Just want to remind everybody again of the date is Sunday, March 10th. It will be kicking off at 3 p.m., and it's a great day. Finally, we'd like to thank the Village Board of Tuckahoe, Mr. Mayor, the Board of Trustees, the PD, the Highways Department, Pastor Father Razor of Immaculate Conception and Assumption Church, and all the volunteers that helped this parade be as enjoyable as it is. I thank you.
The problem with following Steve is Steve covers everything, so I'm going to be under 30 seconds. I just want to emphasize that obviously we want to, the reason why we do this parade is that this was the brain trust of Tom Uvain, Jim Hendry, and actually Dave Flannery was one of the founding fathers, so to speak, of this parade. Aside from just showing our Irish pride and trying to share Irish culture with everyone, we also feel that this parade has been a groundswell of getting all the various municipalities together, Eastchester, Tuckahoe, Bronxville. We really enjoy having all of you come to the parade, as well as all the people who live in the village of Tuckahoe. The police department's awesome as far as also contributing and coming and being part of this parade. And we would just like 100% attendance for this parade on March 10th. And the only thing I would like to close with is a special thanks to Camille for making sure that I didn't screw up and not appear before the board this year. So thank you again for your indulgences, and we hope to see everyone on March 10th.
It's our pleasure, and thanks so much for getting a hold of Camille. She did track me down on Friday evening. So, you know, it's a great parade. It's one of the biggest parades that there is, one of the biggest Irish parades that we have. So I think it's, you know what, that's a lot of work you folks have put into it.
Honestly, Honorable Mayor, it's a labor of love, and we hope that it continues to grow. And as always, I'm promising good weather for March 10th, so everyone should come out.
And you normally get it. It's kind of chilly sometimes, but and I'm excited to be there. We're going to have the trolley there for you again,
Excellent.
once again.
Thank you.
Maybe well needed for some of the seniors who have difficulty making the long trek. And as a grandson of Helen Regina Finn, I'm certainly going to be there myself. So.
Terrific. Look forward to seeing you.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for coming down. We have one public hearing this evening, but just before we open that up, I'm going to first move to a resolution number 1, which is a resolution declaring a negative declaration under the State Environmental Quality Review Act as it concerns certain zoning amendments to the Tuckahoe zoning ordinance of 2001. Do I have a motion for that?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Trustee Quigley.
In favor.
Trustee Luisi.
In favor.
Trustee Hayes.
In favor.
Mayor Eklund.
In favor. And that brings us to public hearing number 1, which is a public hearing on proposed local law amending sections 4-5 entitled Business Residential, 5-1 entitled Supplemental Regulations, 7-1 entitled Approval of Site Plans, and 10-5 entitled Fees of the Village of Tuckahoe Zoning Ordinance of 2001. So do I have a motion to open this public hearing?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Roll call.
Trustee Quigley.
In favor.
Trustee Luisi.
In favor.
Trustee Hayes.
In favor.
Mayor Eklund.
In favor. This public hearing is now open, and before I ask the public if they have any questions on it, I'm going to throw this over to our village councilor just to kind of summarize some of the bullet points of this.
Sure, Mayor, this local law would effectuate certain text changes to the zoning code of the Village of Tuckahoe. The First Amendment would codify in the business residential zoning district, apartments for one-family residential use at or above the second floor would be permitted by special use permit, and in no case, with the exception of zoning board relief, residential dwellings be permitted on the ground floor, first floor, or basement level. The Second Amendment recites that parking space requirements shall be set forth in the zoning code, but in instances where use is not listed, the planning board shall determine the parking requirements, and the planning board may grant up to a 15% reduction in parking if the planning board finds that the capacity is sufficient to meet the demands of such use. The reduction shall be in land bank areas, and if the land banking is used, the land bank spaces may be landscaped or kept as open space. Within a year after the certificate of occupancy is granted, the building department may visit the site to determine if enough parking exists, and if sufficient parking does not exist, the land bank spaces may be paved for parking as determined by the building department. Also, the zoning code is corrected to provide that the number of spaces per unit in the Residence B zoning district is 2, and that parking spaces would be regulated in space and size, being 9 feet by 18 feet. The Third Amendment affects the site plan review, and under the amendments, the minor site plan review for 1 and 2 family dwellings shall be within the jurisdiction of the building department. The building department would have 30 days to provide its comments for minor site plan review, and that would be appealable to the planning board. Minor site plan review would also not require ARB approval. Finally, the last amendment would codify a certain policy in the village concerning escrow accounts, and escrow accounts would be established for withdrawals for professional review services. The reviewing board is not required to consider an application until the deposit has been made. The applicant must replenish the account upon its failure to do so, and upon its failure to do so, the reviewing board may suspend its review of the application. And finally, the building permits and COs would not be granted until and unless all professional fees have been paid. That's a summary of the changes in the local law as proposed.
Thank you. Some of these things we almost were practicing informally, and now we're formalizing it, so that's good. I know that a lot of the recommendations, or some of these recommendations, especially the size of the parking spaces, these have been recommended by our planner for many years now, too, so I guess we're a little bit behind the curve, getting caught up to speed, but we are here now. And One of the things that we had discussed at length now, too, is to take the site plan review for single-family homes and give it to the building inspector, and that's going to take a little bit of a load off of the planning board, so that was something that we're interested in. I want to ask the deputy clerk if she's received any written correspondences on this. Okay. Anybody from the public want to weigh in on this at all? Yes, ma'am.
Good evening, members of the trustees and mayor. My name is Sandra Reyes-Guerra. I'm a resident in Tuckahoe, 50 Winter Hill Road. I'm also a landscape architect and a lead Green Associate. LEAD stands for Leadership in Environmental and Energy Design. I'm here today because I'm very glad, as a landscape architect and lead a Green Associate, to see the support, because I like to support efforts to include and encourage concepts in sustainable site design. And the portion of the amendments that pertain to land banking for the purpose of utilizing space that could be applied for green space is very encouraging. I'm very happy to see that. I just wanted to look and focus in on one area that I felt that I could just contribute a couple comments to that may help in developing that and looking and making that more focused as it gets developed and approved. Kind of as a focus on page 6 in the Article 5-1.2.1.3, kind of like mostly two-thirds all the way down after the sentence about the 15% requirement. It says, if land banking is utilized, the land banked spaces may be landscaped or otherwise kept as open space. As a proponent of, again, sustainable landscapes, I would like to see the may be changed to shall, because I think that the wording green be inserted into open green space instead of just open space. The reason for that being that I feel strongly that it should be a green space and not somehow be interpreted as just open space, therefore there's not a building on it, but it may be paved in some way. It should be open, porous space. And I have just a suggestion as an alternative to the that language, one being that if landscape banking is utilized, the land banked spaces shall be proposed as either A, planted with a shade tree in low shrubs or ground cover, or otherwise landscaped to provide shade or screening, pedestrian amenities, groundwater recharge, reduced impervious paving, or an offset to heat island effects of paving in a manner that is visually pleasing. Or simply, that iteration is to include the intent of part of what land-banked spaces would be used for, and that's a very sustainable proposal. Or more simply, it could be changed to if land banking is utilized, the land bank spaces, again, shall be landscaped where possible with a shade tree in low shrubs or ground cover, or otherwise kept as green space. That's a simplified version of what could be adapted or as used as an alternative to what the language as it currently reads. I also just wanted to comment on understanding that sometimes if it's landscaped right up front, I don't know what the procedure would be for this, but I think maybe some additional language as to how this procedure would go through the approval process for approval with the planning board. Should there be some procedure whereas there's a temporary manner installed so that the developer doesn't have to plant something initially and then have it yanked out? Understandably, that's not fair to the landscaper or to the village. Just as a more thoughtful way of putting together a procedure, maybe a proposed landscape plan for a land banked spaces could be provided by the applicant for approval by the planning board, and then You have the 1 year of monitoring where it's kept as open, stabilized, hopefully green space, probably just a grassed area. And there could be, for example, an escrow account that is put in place that could cover the cost of that space either being paved if necessary at the end of the time, or to cover the cost of the landscape as proposed and approved by the planning board at the end of that 1 year period. Either way, that would provide the village insurance that that matter will be addressed one way or another, and that there will be funds to cover that whichever way it goes. So it's really kind of just a little bit more procedural, and I think it would help the village as it goes through the approval process, and ensuring that at the end of the day, something is put in place that is appropriate. And during that interim, maybe if that green space is grassed for that period of time, as you know, people tend to ignore a lot of things in an open space parking lot. And if they just see an open green space, they may just simply, if it's in a convenient place for them at the time, still park or run over it or whatever. And I think if the intent is to see if this space could be utilized permanently as a land bank area, maybe it is temporarily cordoned off with traffic cones that are spiked into the ground, temporary measures that would delineate the space and identify it as a space that is temporarily being considered for land banking. And however, of course, if there is an emergency that, 6 months down the line, if say, well, you really need to have this space, it could of course be removed and utilized, or in emergency purposes could be removed for use by the village for one matter or another. The point is that the space during that 1 year interim of monitoring should be delineated and identified as a land banking space, so that it's not just being utilized and run over by people. So it has a fair chance of being acknowledged as a land bank space with a permanent intent of potentially being used for landscaping purposes one way or another. So that's my general comment. And I just wanted to thank you for your time and consideration, and we look forward to additionally encouraging amendments that propose sustainable site design. Thank you.
I just want to talk to our counselor about some of the things that Sandy raised. I guess moving backwards, if somebody were to go ahead and park in a space that was land bank, they would be at risk for getting a violation.
That's correct, Mayor. We currently have restrictions on the books that you're not able to park in grassed areas, so that would be an enforcement issue to the building department, and a person wouldn't be able to accomplish that legally without getting a violation.
Okay. She raises an issue about changing the word from may to shall. Tell us
Right, I had
about
spoken
that.
to the village planner as well, Frank Fish. He unfortunately couldn't be here this evening because of a medical issue, but both him and I had agreed that we were going to make this permissive, because the nature of the legislation is that the planning board is granted this authority and may grant up to the 15% reduction. They're not required to, but if they do that, they're going to do that through a land bank area. With that said, we thought it would be best that rather than legislate from the village board, that the planning board have the authority to review each application on its face to determine if that's the best course of action for that particular application. We were suggesting that the planning board has been granted this general grant of authority, have the ability to look at each application on its face and then determine if the land banking would be appropriate. As you know, there's very little open space in the village. We're trying to accomplish that, but nonetheless, you have some buildings in some areas and some developments that just don't afford for that type of open space. So we wanted that in the discretion of the planning board.
Okay, and I was going to also talk about that. The planning board is really, that they would use their control to determine what the land bank space would look like.
That's correct.
Right.
And as part of that, as Sandy has mentioned, the planning board could ask for a site plan that includes landscaping features, or a landscape plan to say, in the event that this area will remain a land bank area, we want to know what that future landscaping would look like. I think we're all in agreement, though, that if an area is indeed land banked, we don't want an applicant to have to come in, maybe put in $50,000 of landscaping,
And then have to
only
yank
for a
it all
year
out.
later to be told to rip it out to provide for more land banking spaces and more parking spaces. I think we all agree that would be unfair for an applicant. So it's that future landscaping, once that 1-year period has lapsed.
Would they, in the initial application with the planning board, require the applicant to go ahead and pre-plan for?
They could, they're not required to,
Okay.
they could, and they could also make it a condition of approval that that landscape plan be submitted after the determination by the building inspector on the land bank areas for further approval by the planning board. So the applicant could come back with one component of this site plan approval, which would be the landscaped area, and review it, because you may have a situation where perhaps you have 10 cars, an area large enough for 10 spaces in a land bank area, but the building inspector has the discretion to say, I only want half of that to go now towards parking spaces, and the other half to become landscape. So there's a lot of issues that depend upon the discretion of the building inspector and the discretion of the planning board.
And we have a pretty good planning board, and I'm certain that they would absolutely make sure that the applicant would be forward-thinking, and they would require them to go ahead and submit a landscape plan. Yes, go ahead.
I just want to ask, this is, the idea was that there would be one year after the applicant has the C of O on the building already.
That's correct.
So is there a vehicle just to make sure, I mean, whichever way this goes, if it gets paved or if it gets landscaped, how do we ensure that the funds are available to get that done, even after they've gotten their C of O? Because after they get their C of O, they kind of like run wild with things sometimes.
What would happen was if an applicant didn't come back and, let's say, devote the parking space area, they would risk a revocation of their site plan approval, which would also include a revocation of their CO.
Okay.
So you have that teeth, if you will, to go back after the applicant if they don't comply with the land bank.
Okay, no, I just felt strongly that something should be put in place to make sure that that happens one way or the other.
Right, and that would exist by virtue of this legislation.
Okay. Great.
Sandy, if you could stay there for a second, I'm going to first ask John the question and see if I understand this correctly. You want to retain the word may be landscape. Sandy's proposing the term shall be landscaped, and I understand why we don't want to put the word shall in at the beginning. Could there be a sort of a timetable placed on this that says that may be landscaped, and if after a year there is no need, the building department does not see a need for parking on that land bank space, at that point it shall be landscaped, and this way other could sort of lie fallow for forever.
I think both Frank Fish and I agreed that we would want the planning board rather than the village board to make that determination, because we don't know, A, what type of landscaping would be required, whether B, open space or open green space would better serve the site, and 3, taking into account surrounding uses, rather than legislating and saying you have to do a particular type of landscape. Landscape is really an element of site plan approval, which is within the jurisdiction of the planning board as opposed to the village board. So we thought that by leaving that with the planning board, they're the experts, if you will, on landscaping, particularly sanding, then we would be in a better position to get a better product at the end of the day.
And of course, then the public would have input with the planning board to advocate if they wanted to for the
Yes,
landscaping
there would be a
or
public
trees or
hearing
whatever.
on the site plan application.
All right, so we're just sort of shifting the responsibility a little bit here.
Exactly.
Could we also, I mean, is there any language that, I mean, I'd just like that area during that interim time to be stabilized and just suggested, even like just with grass or something, or is that still under the purview, or should that be
Right,
part of the
I
language?
think that's best depending upon the particular application to be an approval, a condition of site plan approval, where an applicant would have the ability to come before the planning board, and the planning board would say, okay, you have this land bank area, we want it to be paved, we want it to be green space.
No, I'm talking about during that 1 year
Right.
monitoring period. Oh, okay.
Because the site plan approval would precede the issuance of the CO, so the planning board would have the ability to say, it's going to be green space, it's going to be grass space, it's going to be a paved area, until we get that final determination that 1 year later, from the building inspector.
So during the interim, is it grassed or just left fallow or
It's
what?
whatever the planning
It's
board
that-
determines.
The planning board
Oh, okay,
determines
okay.
as a
So it's
condition
just-
of their approval.
They would just have to make sure that all of these things are
Conditions are
Exactly.
written
in place. It's a matter of checking them off to make sure that they get done.
Exactly. And the planning board, as you know,
Yeah.
they will address landscaping.
Yeah.
And they'll address that area. And our conditions have been numerous with respect to recent applications. We're able to add that as a condition
Okay.
for site plan approval.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Super.
Thank you for looking it over, too. Appreciate it. Anybody else on the board have any other comments?
I'm sorry, that's John again now. It seems to me, your understanding, and I want to make sure it's my understanding, that if we don't amend any of the law with any of the language that Sandy's proposing, because we're going to trust that the planning board is going to do the right thing when it becomes their responsibility, you're comfortable with the language as is, and the agenda will accomplish that purpose, and you don't see there's a need to do any kind of revisions or postpone a vote on this until next
No,
month?
I see the vote is going ahead. I see that the discretion, the general grant of authority, which is more appropriate from the village board, being granted to the planning board. And under state law and under our local zoning code, landscaping is an issue for the planning board. And I feel more comfortable with, rather than legislate landscaping, we let each applicant pursue their remedy before the planning board and let those experts determine landscaping as they do with every other application. Even just to say, to get to what you said earlier, we're really not shifting authority. We're remaining with our present authority, that landscaping be within the issue of the planning board. We're actually leaving things alone, if you will, rather than shifting authority to a planning board.
All right, thanks.
Nothing else on this. I will ask for a motion to close this public hearing.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Trustee Quigley.
In favor?
Trustee Luisi.
In favor.
Trustee Hayes.
In favor.
Mayor Eklund.
In favor. Now do I have a motion to enact and adopt local law number 1 of 2013?
So moved.
Second for that?
Second.
Trustee Quigley.
In favor?
Trustee Luisi.
Favor.
Trustee Hayes.
In favor.
Mayor Eklund.
In favor. This brings us to the adoption of the minutes, which is the approval of the minutes of the regular meeting of January 14th, 2013. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Trustee Quigley.
In favor?
Trustee Luisi.
Favor.
Trustee Hayes.
In favor.
Mayor Eklund.
In favor. Do we have any correspondences?
No.
Nothing tonight. I have a couple of appointments to make this evening. The first is the appointment of David Scalzo as member to the Citizens Budget Advisory Committee for a term to expire on December 31, 2015. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Trustee Quigley.
In favor?
Trustee Luisi.
Favor.
Trustee Hayes.
In favor.
Mayor Eklund.
In favor. The next appointment, same board, is the appointment of Frank Moran as member of the Citizens Budget Advisory Committee for a term to expire on December 31, 2014. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Trustee Quigley.
In favor?
Trustee Luisi.
In favor.
Trustee Hayes.
In favor.
Mayor Eklund.
In favor. And this is a three-member committee, so we have the appointment of Chris Samios as member to the Citizens Budget Advisory Committee for a term to expire on December 31 of this year, 2013. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Trustee Quigley.
In favor?
Trustee Luisi.
In favor.
Trustee Hayes.
In favor.
Mayor Eklund.
In favor. And finally, we need somebody to run the show, and that's going to be the appointment of David Scalzo as chairperson of the Citizens Budget Advisory Committee, and this term will expire on December 31, 2013. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Trustee Quigley.
In favor.
Trustee Luisi.
In favor.
Trustee Hayes.
In favor.
Mayor Eklund.
Very much in favor. I want to thank these three fine gentlemen for taking on this challenge. This is a new committee we have set up to help us throughout the painful budget process, and I can tell you that they have hit the ground running and have already given us an awful lot of food for thought. So I'm looking forward to working with them over the next couple of months. This is going to bring us to the first opportunity to address the board on anything that's on our agenda tonight. If anybody has anything? And there being none, we're going to move to resolution number 2, which is a resolution scheduling a public hearing on a local law amending and adding Article 5 of Chapter 15 entitled Miscellaneous Offenses and Provisions, Section 15-55 through 15-59 of the Village Code of the Village of Tuckahoe entitled Retail Carryout Bags. Do I have a motion to schedule this public hearing?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Trustee Quigley.
In favor?
Trustee Luise.
In favor?
Trustee Hayes.
In favor.
Mayor Eklund.
In favor. I'm going to ask Trustee Quigley to talk about this in just a minute, but I'm going to now move to resolution number 3, which is a resolution declaring the Village Board of Trustees intent to act as lead agency under the State Environmental Quality Review Act as it concerns a local law amending and adding Article 5 of Chapter 15 entitled Miscellaneous Offenses and Provisions, Sections 15 through 55 through 15 through 59 of the Village Code of the Village of Tuckahoe entitled Retail Carryout Bags. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
And discussion, I'm going to ask Trustee Quigley if he would discuss this new piece of legislation was his brainchild and very worthy, so please.
All right, thank you. It wasn't entirely my brainchild. Actually, what I'd like to do is see Tuckahoe join up with other communities, both here in Westchester and really across the country, to move forward environmentally by phasing out and eventually eliminating plastic carryout bags, shopping bags. These are the bags that you get at the time you get to the cash register or whatever store to take home your products. The reason being is the evidence is overwhelming that plastic bags do not break down. They do not get reabsorbed into the earth. They last forever. They become litter problems. They become hazards to wildlife, and so in many ways they're not essential to our shopping experience or to the quality of life. There's plenty of alternatives to plastic bags. And often with any kind of what's a good idea, it needs a little bit of an oomph or a little force behind it, and that's essentially what the purpose of this law would be. It would provide a long phase-out period. It would provide alternatives for paper bags, and hopefully it will provide education not only to the merchants but to the public as well to find alternatives to carry your merchandise home in bags that are not of the same non-biodegradable plastic. There are plenty of reusable mesh and cloth bags. The paper bags, which can be recycled, would be acceptable under this law. So there's a lot of options, and also just a bit of education. If you're going to, say, Epstein's and you buy a packet of athletic socks and they're already wrapped up in plastic and they're perfectly protected from any rain, mud, or whatever, why do you need another bag to carry them out? So we, as I said, it's going to be part of an education process, but I think it needs a little bit of the law behind it. And what we're doing essentially is we're tracking very closely what the city of Rye did about a year and a half ago, and their law has been in effect now. Rye is a village, our city that's about twice the size of Tuckahoe, and they've had very good success. And at the public hearing we're going to have in March, a couple of representatives from Rye, and I believe from the town of Mamaroneck, which also passed a very similar law. Laws that are going on in this, to this effect in Westport, Southampton, and a number of places around the country. So I'd like to have a chance for the community to express its approval, disapproval, ask questions, and that's what would be the point of the hearing in March. And if needed, we'll go another month or so.
Thank you. I noticed in the Journal News over the weekend that Mamaroneck now has the same legislation. So we're going to make sure, we spoke about this in our work session, we're going to make sure that we give very good notice to all the local businesses so that they have an opportunity. Some of the business owners may not live in town, and we'll go ahead and make sure that they're hand-delivered notice of that meeting so they can come down and give us some of their thoughts on it as well. So roll call.
Trustee Quigley.
In favor.
Trustee Luise.
In favor.
Trustee Hayes.
In favor.
Mayor Eklund.
In favor. Resolution number 4 is approving the Eastchester Recreation Department's request to utilize the community center for their mini vacation camp from March 25 to 29, 2013, Monday through Friday from 8:30 a.m. to 5 p.m. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Trustee Quigley.
In favor.
Trustee Luise.
In favor.
Trustee Hayes.
In favor.
Mayor Eklund.
In favor. Pardon me. Resolution number 5 is approving payment of vouchers in the amount of $1,309,578, consisting of abstract number 34 for $2,320, abstract number 35 for $1,307,258. The three largest invoices paid were $682,855 for the village's police and fire retirement system, pension contribution for fiscal year 2012-2013, $403,873 for the village's employee retirement system, pension contribution for fiscal year 2012-2013, and $123,252 for medical insurance premiums for the month of February of this year. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Trustee Quigley.
In favor.
Trustee Luise.
In favor.
Trustee Hayes.
In favor.
Mayor Eklund.
In favor. Resolution number 6 is authorizing the advertising for public bids in connection with the project known as Columbus Avenue Overhead Utility Relocation and Streetscape Restoration at the Crestwood Station. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Just brief discussion on this. This is the project that's been going on for, or the planning of the project that's been going on for quite some time, which is to put the power lines underground down in the Crestwood Business District area.
Trustee Quigley.
In favor.
Trustee Luise.
Favor.
Trustee Hayes.
In favor.
Mayor Eklund.
In favor. Resolution number 7 is a resolution authorizing the police department to advertise and receive bids for the sale of a 2004 Chevy Impala. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Trustee Quigley.
In favor.
Trustee Luise.
In favor.
Trustee Hayes.
In favor.
Mayor Eklund.
In favor. Resolution number 8, this is the painful one, we've been waiting for this, is approving a tax certiorari settlement for Verizon New York Incorporated, located at Grant Street, Depot Square, Section 33, Block 9, Lot 1B, in the amount of $153,414.12 for assessment years 2004 through 2012. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
We've known this one was on the horizon. This is the big one for us. It's going to be big for the school district too, I'm sure. So fortunately for us, the number was significantly lower than we had planned on, and that our tax certiorari law firm had frightened us that it was initially going to be. So I guess there is a silver lining to that cloud. But in itself, it's a big nut for us.
Trustee Quigley.
In favor.
Trustee Luise.
In favor.
Trustee Hayes.
In favor.
Mayor Eklund.
In favor. This will bring us to department reports to the board. Our superintendent of public works is not here tonight. He had a death in the family. And I see our building inspector is shaking his head. He has no report. Our chief of police is with us tonight, and he does have something for us.
Good evening. I had no report until about half an hour before the meeting, and right before I left my home, I got a call, and I wanted to just discuss it, because if I got this call, I'm sure several of our residents are also going to be solicited. I got a call from a representative who said he was from the New York State Park Police PBA, and it was a professional telemarketer asking for a donation, and I politely told him that I wasn't interested in donating, and then these are, again, professional telemarketers, so they try to draw on your sympathy, and said, I think you would be interested if you knew you were helping the widow of a slain police officer, and went on. And after a conversation with him, I got as much information as I could, and then I ended it by telling him who I was, and it wasn't appropriate for me to give to this particular association. I came in and I checked the website of the New York State Attorney General, and just as a matter of fact, all of these charities have to register with the Attorney General, and the website is very informative. There's a whole section on charitable associations, and I looked up this for 2012. what this telemarketing company had collected on behalf of the New York State PBA, New York State Park Police PBA, and they had collected in excess of $322,000. Of that $322,000, $48,000 went to the PBA. The rest went into the pockets of the telemarketer. So 15% goes to the PBA. In this instance, 85% goes to the telemarketer. So I just want to educate our residents. Telemarketing is very profitable to these professionals. On this particular page, and there are hundreds across the board on this page, it's 15%. Some of them are for environmental groups, some are for firefighter organizations, some are for animal shelters, etc. Just keep in mind, in general, telemarketing is very profitable for the caller. Before you give, you should ask questions. For instance, what is the percentage that goes to the charity? If you don't know, you certainly don't need to make a decision right at that moment. Do a little research, and we're going to put all this information on our website and on TV, so people know where to go, where to look up this type of information. But just keep it in mind, our local PBA, the Tuckahoe Police Organization, does not solicit by telephone. There are so many great charitable organizations right in town that are known to our residents. So our suggestion is, if you want to donate to whether it be the PBA or any other charitable organization, you make a direct donation, not go through these professional organizations. And again, there's so many great charities right in town. Community Fund, the local PBAs, firefighter groups that are in town. You know who you're giving it to. 100% of your donation is going to that association, and not lining the pockets of these telemarketers. So, again, this information will be put on our website tomorrow, and again, just a heads up to our residents.
Thank you, Chief. Keep it local, that's right. John, do you have anything for us tonight?
No, Mayor.
Okay, Camille? Okay. Miscellaneous business, we have some budget workshops that are coming up, and the first one we have noted in our agenda is for Saturday, February 16th, and I circulated an email earlier today, and I think we're going to change that to Wednesday, February 13th at 8:30, which is going to be held after our community meeting. That's next Wednesday. And then the next one, which is for Saturday, March 2nd, instead of 8 a.m., we're going to change that time until, I didn't get a chance. Does 2 o'clock work for everybody? Yeah?
That's fine.
Okay, 2 o'clock. The next village board meeting will be on Monday, March 11th. The residents' meeting is going to be next Wednesday, February 13th, 7 o'clock, down at the community center. Our Department of Public Works is closed on Tuesday, the 12th, in observance of Lincoln's birthday, and village offices and DPW will be closed on Monday, February 18th, in observance of the President's holiday. Just want to make a note for everyone who normally votes, or who would normally vote up at Assumption Church, that they will not be voting there this year. They're going to be voting down at the community center. So that is the 11th and 12th voting districts in the March 19th elections will be coming down. So basically, if you live in the village of Tuckahoe, you're going to the community center to vote on election day this year. Everyone who lives in Tuckahoe. That brings us to our Board of Trustees member reports, and we will start off with Trustee Quigley.
Thank you, Mayor. The next big event for the Eastchester Tuckahoe Chamber of Commerce is the Persons and Business of the Year dinner at Lake Isle. That'll be on Thursday, April 4th. There'll be more information coming out about that shortly. Library has always had a lot of good events. The most probably timely one is every Friday from 10:30 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. The AARP is providing tax assistance for people to come in. So that'll be every Friday from now until tax day, or the Friday before tax day on April 12th, from 10:30 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. at the library. Lots of opportunity to learn your computer skills. They're still doing one-on-one basic computer and internet instruction at the library. That'll be on Thursdays, next Thursdays, the 21st and the 28th of February from 12 to 2. This does require registration because it is a one-on-one training session. So contact the library. Again, you can connect to them through our website. New program starting up on February 26th will be gentle chair yoga. Not stressful, not hot yoga, nothing that's going to strain too much, but it's a good chance to learn some of the techniques of yoga, and it'll be starting Tuesday, February 26th from 9:15 a.m. to 10:15 a.m., again down at the library. Lots of free music, free books, free reading devices. All these are available. All the electronic media is available to the library. Just stop in, ask about what you can get in terms of free downloads for both music and books. You can check out e-readers. You can check out electronic books onto your own e-readers. So there's lots of ways to stay on top of what's going on in both literature and technology. And that's just scratching the surface of the library, but lots going on.
It's always a busy place. Thank you. Trustee Luisi?
Thank you, Mayor. It's been a quiet month since our last meeting. Officially, Jennifer Vetramil has taken over as the new director of the Tuckahoe Senior Center. Barbara Steyer has had her retirement party October 16th, I believe, at the Old Stone Mill. So I know the mayor was there in attendance along with many of the local dignitaries. Jennifer has hit the ground running as well. She already has a whole potpourri of events planned for the upcoming months. Ironically, they're going to be celebrating Valentine's Day on February 14th with a pizza luncheon, and then Eastchester Town Supervisor Tony Calavita will supply the center with a love cake on that day. So that's February 14th at noon. And that's it. It's been a quiet month.
It has been. Thank you.
And thankfully it hasn't snowed that much, so...
Knock on wood. We have a little coming tonight, I think. Trustee Hayes?
Thank you. Just a few announcements for this evening. First, our Environmental Committee will be meeting this Wednesday, February 6th at 7:30 p.m. here at Village Hall. And on that evening at our meeting, we actually are going to have a guest join us. Nina Orville from SWIAC, who came to our last Village Board meeting, is now just going to come and sit down with the environmental group and discuss what she discussed with us, just to kind of catch them up to speed. And our next tree committee meeting is scheduled for Wednesday, February 20th at 7:30 p.m. And finally, I just wanted to give an update on our village newsletter. I just started working on it, and I am happy to announce that I have some help this time. Our village intern with us this semester, Liz Volpe, who is a Concordia College student, graciously said she'd jump in and help with us, and she's an English major, so I'm looking forward to getting some good information from her and some write-ups from her, as well as we have a local resident within the village as well, who is a freelance writer as well, who said she wanted to get together and help us out. So we actually met last Friday. We all got together and kind of just went over our game plan and divvied up the work, and everyone's going to be reaching out to the appropriate people within the village to get some topics and gather our thoughts, and we're hopeful that it should be completed and distributed to all of our residents by the end of this month. And of course, in addition to a paper copy, we'll have it posted on our website. And that's what I have and I'm working on right now.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you. I'll be brief tonight. I'm going to start off, unfortunately, I have some sad news to let everyone know. If anybody has been here a long time, they remember Angelo Giuliano, and he worked for our Department of Public Works for either side of 20 years. I know he worked here when I first got on the board. Angelo was one of those amazing, hard-working guys. There wasn't anything that he couldn't do, and he was out. Didn't matter what the weather was like. He was out there 100%, and he was a great servant for the village of Tuckahoe. So he's been retired for some years now, and he's been living in Florida. And unfortunately, he passed away this past weekend. So our condolences go out to his family. His son worked here at Village Hall, too, for a while. And I know he worked with a lot of the men in the department, so they're kind of feeling this today. So our hearts go out to them as well. Our budget meetings have started. We started this past Saturday. We met here at Village Hall. We did kind of an initial run-through of the grim news. It's always grim, the first budget that you take a look at, and that's why we meet multiple times to go ahead and hone that budget down to the bone. And certainly we have an awful lot of work ahead of us this year with some of the enormous increases that we have been stuck with on some of the, you hear the term all the time, unfunded mandates, and we got a hard dose of that this past Saturday. So we just started. We're optimistic that we're all going to put in 110% on it. So we have an awful lot of budget work sessions that are scheduled this year, and in addition to the hard work that we put in, we're going to be tapping some of the knowledge of our budget advisory committee as well too. During our budget meeting, I was happy that we had a visitor, Mr. Vetramil. His name is Glenn Vetramil. He's the principal partner for the Glenmark project, which is where the old Crestwood RV site is up the street. And a lot of people associate that project with Mr. Raffiani, and they should, because he's involved with it, but will most likely be dealing with Mr. Vetramil, and he came to visit us Saturday and dropped a $200,000 check on our desk, which is always helpful, and that's one of 3 that will be coming our way. So that's his building fee, which means that we have to do our work. We're being paid for providing him a service, which is going to be a couple of years' worth of review through the building department. He's has his work to do, which is to start that project, and he gave us a preliminary timeline. He's got an awful lot of work ahead of him. He's going to be starting this spring, within the next month or 2, and he's looking, basically from what he said, what he told us, he's going to be using the old Coca-Cola site, which is where we were storing snow when we had snow a couple of years ago, had snow a few years ago. That's the excavated property on the right-hand side when you're going down Midland Place. And that'll be his staging area for his construction trailers, some of his supplies, while they excavate the larger area, which is where the Crestwood RV site was before. He's looking to get his foundations in the ground by the fall, and then they'll spend the winter putting steel up and doing framing and doing some interior work. So it's been a long time coming, and we're certainly looking forward to getting that building complete so we can get a little bit more tax revenue in the village too. That's going to help the school district tremendously, and it's going to help us as well here too. So we hope that it goes well. We're going to do everything we can to make sure that he gets all the assistance that he needs from our building department through our inspection process, and any help that we can give him to get that project done safely. In addition to that, he has an obligation to do some exterior or some perimeter work on the Main Street Park. That was a condition of his approval process, and it turns out that he's going a step beyond that, and he's going to be raising some funds to go ahead and do some pretty extensive renovations throughout the entire park. And I was happy to hear that, because we had planned on doing some Main Street Park renovations with some CDBG funding that was pulled from us. So this should pick up the slack on that. So good things are going to be happening down at that corner. And with that, it's going to bring me to the second opportunity to address the board on anything at all. So, yes, sir. If you just identify your name and your address, please.
Good evening. My name is Andrew Wataker. I live at 2 Consulate Drive, Unit 3F. I just wanted to jump back for just a second to the plastic bag proposal. I was just wondering how these similar bag regulations in other communities have been received, and how they've worked out in other communities that approved them.
I'll be glad to answer
I'll
that.
defer your question just quickly, yes.
The most extensive conversations that I've had with the Sustainability Committee in Rye, and surprisingly, the merchants did not have a lot of difficulty with it once they understood what could and could not be used. So, for example, one of the questions was, well, if you go and you order a sandwich at a deli and they wrap it in plastic and you take it then to the counter and you pay for it and you walk out the door, that additional wrapping is okay. That's not something that would be banned. That would be banned is the actual bag with the handles that you carry it in. So when they were assured that things like that, and if you go to the grocery store, though we don't have any supermarkets in Tuckahoe, but if you go to the grocery store and you go to the produce section and you pull a bag down and put your head of broccoli in there, that's exempt too. That's not the kind of thing would be banned. Dry cleaning bags would not be banned under this. So those types of uses would be okay. So once they learned that, people realized it wouldn't be such an onerous task to do that. And as a matter of fact, in the proposed law, there's a series of escalating fines for violating the law. So far, it's been in effect in Rye for, I think, over a year. I think it went into effect in December of 2011 or January of 2012. So it's been in effect for a year. They've yet to collect a fine or find a violation. And they're watching, so it's not like they're ignoring the law. So it really, it's been quite successful there. And we're watching the progress in Mamaroneck, which has just enacted their law, based very much on the Rye law. So it's the effort that I see would be more of an educational effort, and rather than enforcing, well, there will be a mandate if the law is approved, but I think what's going to make the law work is the education and the willingness of people to accept what we think is a really progressive environmental measure, rather than worrying about somebody coming in and slapping them with fines for handing out plastic carry-out bags.
All right, well, thank you. I'm running the upcoming election, so I look forward to discussing this and other issues, and thank you for the thoughtful proposal.
We'll see you in March.
Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. If you just identify yourself and your address, please.
My name is Rita Mastro-Berardino, 261 Dante Avenue.
Thank you.
Hello, everybody. I'm here tonight to represent my American Cancer Society Relay for Life team, Forever Rally for Regina, and the Boy Scouts of Troop 1, who couldn't be with me tonight because it's their regular meeting night. We want to thank the Village of Tuckahoe for letting us use the Tuckahoe Community Center to have a blood drive the other day. We'd like to thank John DiArco and his staff and all of you, and especially Mayor Eklund, who was a donor, and he and 60 other successful donors
There was a lot of people
were
there.
able to participate, and we're very, very pleased. And we'd like to invite everybody to mark your calendars for May 11th through 12th for the Relay for Life coming to our community. It's our fourth. And last year, our community raised $90,000 for the American Cancer Society. And if you are wondering, the Relay for Life is an organized overnight community fundraising walk consisting of teams of people camping out around a track. Members each take turns walking around the track all night long in a relay to represent that cancer never sleeps. The event includes music, food, games, and activities. It's family-friendly and for the entire community. And as I mentioned, this is our community's fourth relay.
Will it be up at Concordia again, the same
Yes,
place?
at Concordia.
You know, I'll tell you, every year there's a conflict in, I guess, my job, and I'm never able to make it. But last year I was able to
Yeah.
go. And it was really the coolest thing I've ever
It's
seen.
wonderful.
It was really fantastic. So
I encourage
the weather
everybody.
was great. You know, the weather
Yes,
was perfect.
that helps.
But I mean, yeah, I guess if it was a downpour, I think wouldn't have been so nice. But I mean, it was. I went home and I was like, wow, that was really neat. It was just a great camp out for the weekend. Entertainment, everyone was happy. Just a lot of fun. A lot of fun.
Yes, well, I hope you'll all join us, or
Looking forward
support
to
us in some way. Actually, I have some information I'd be happy to leave around the village offices.
Sure,
and
you can
to
give
all
it to
of you.
Camille and she'll
Okay.
make sure.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, if there's no other business tonight, nobody else from the public has anything to say, I will ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Till next time, Tuckahoe, have a very good evening.